had never grown up in a segregated society. And here it was institutionalized and legalized. And I think if we had been in the community rather than in academia, we probably would not have stayed. But within academia, there were a sizable number of like-minded people who worked to preserve public education. You know, there was a movement to close the public schools rather than integrate them. And we were involved with that. And it was my privilege to meet a number of people that were involved in the civil rights, because I got into trouble at Grady within my first year of being in charge of the clinic. And others have told the story, because the hospital was built like an H. The two front areas were white, the two back areas were black. In the clinic, one side was white and one side was black. And the patients were being called to their appointments over a PA system. The white patients were called Mr. or Mrs. The black patients were called by their first name. And I said, this is not going to happen in my clinic. And I just instructed the people that everyone was to be called Mr. or Mrs. And as you might anticipate, I was in the director's office the next week. And the director was one of the good old boys, but I think one who saw the handwriting on the wall. And I remember our initial conversation. And he said to me, Dr. Wenger, do you know what you've done? And I said, yes, sir. And, you know, I was used to being Dr. Cass, and he was this Dr. Wenger who was getting herself into all kinds of trouble. And he said, do you know that it's against the hospital regulations? And I said, yes, sir. He says, do you know it's probably illegal? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, are you going to do it again? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, you're going to be down here and we're going to visit a great deal. This happened for a number of weeks, and we both got tired and wasted our time. And he said, I think I know how to solve this problem. At the time, there was one cafeteria for all the white staff and employees. And you stood in cafeteria line to get your lunch. And we went to the cafeteria together, and we stood in line. And he put his arm around my shoulder and essentially hugged me. Today, he could have lost his job for that. But the message was clear that we were friends and that people were not going to get anywhere by reporting me. The reporting just stopped. We waited them out. But because of that, I had the opportunity to meet both Coretta and Martin King, and was very, very much involved with my congressman, who was John Lewis. And John Lewis taught me a huge amount about good trouble.